It's Fully Threaded Radio, episode 172.
I covered Fastenal for probably 15 or 16 years before taking this position. It's been kind of neat, I think, sort of being on the outside and stepping on into the inside. Maybe that's a conversation for a different time. But that's why I say that this is an industry that
It's time for Fully Threaded Radio.
It is Fully Threaded Radio, voice of the FCH Sourcing Network. If you buy, sell, manufacture, import, frequently consider industrial threaded fasteners, well, this is the podcast for you. We're glad you're here. Thanks for clicking in. Eric Dudas with you here, and we're joined, as always, by the co-host of Fully Threaded. Speaking of people who never stop considering the true meaning of industrial threaded fasteners, it's Brian Musker. Hey, Bri, doing all right?
Yeah, I am, actually. I do actually stop thinking about them occasionally, though.
Oh, I know, Bri. We give you a little bit of a break. Actually, you told me you were celebrating a bit of a milestone recently, and you went out and had a slice of Wagyu beef. How'd that work out?
It was very, very good, actually, once I managed to tell them how I wanted it cooked. So my terminology is a little different to theirs, but we finally got it fixed up. It was very good. And I went to a place that was... They grew their own vegetables, so they made all their stuff for their salads, and they made their own bacon, which was pretty unusual. And they also had some duck bacon, which was really, I've never had that before. It was cool.
Oh, that's the best.
So, and they had their own ham. Oh, it was pretty cool. Very cool.
Well, with the price of beef, much less Wagyu beef these days, I mean, hell, the prices are rising faster than fastener prices, and hope it was a good celebration, because that's about the only time I'd consider going out for that kind of a splurge, but good for you. And glad you got your head back in fasteners at the moment, though.
At the moment, yes. That's right. At the moment, yes. Yep.
And hopefully, ladies and gentlemen, you all have your mind on fasteners, too, because this is Fully Threaded Radio. We're a podcast that discusses that subject.
Quite frequently, actually.
Nearly exclusively. If you're new, then you'll soon discover that. It's episode 172 of the show, everybody. This time we're publishing on January 18th, 2022. The main milestone on the table is the 10th anniversary of the Fastener Distributor Index. This is something that we started to answer what we thought was a void in the industry of just some good, solid baseline numbers for industry sentiment. And we had the good fortune of setting this all up with Holden Lewis, who at the time was with BB&T Capital Markets. Today, many of you know, he's the CFO of Fastenal. He joins us on the opening segment today. We're going to walk down memory lane a little bit about those early days of the index, what it was supposed to do, what it actually is doing. And for those of you from Fastenal who are clicking in just for that reason, welcome aboard. There's lots of Fully Threaded you'll probably find interesting in the archives. In fact, a lot of Fastenal people over the years as well have been guests. But we've got a show full of milestones today and other interesting guests. The feature today is a conversation with Würth Revcar CEO Chapman Revercomb. Now, he was warming up for his big presentation at the International Würth meeting last week down in Florida when I caught up with him for this conversation. Like everyone, Würth is doing what they can to anticipate customer needs as supply and pricing issues rock the industry. And during this discussion, Chapman gives us his take on supply chain transparency, adopting a customer focus, and also his thoughts on the unmentionable, Bri, inflation.
Oh, God. Okay.
Yeah, it's not just Wagyu beef, right?
Right. The 800-pound gorilla in the corner.
We got a big one these days, folks. On the Fastener News Report, Mike McNulty welcomes Bob GQ Baer to discuss the decade-old Fastener Distributor Index. As many of you know, GQ contributes monthly a graph that he put together and he maintains that shows the disparity and sometimes the congruence of our FDI along with the PMI.
Yeah.
He does a great job on that, and he does a great job today talking with Mike. Beyond the FDI, McNulty fans won't be disappointed again. Man, he's been on a roll lately, Bri.
I know, actually.
And on the Fastener Training Minute, Carmen Vertullo asks the question, is your zinc plating RoHS compliant? Well, he tells you how to answer that question. I tell you, folks, you listen to Fully Threaded for perspective on the industry where you make your living. And this episode has perspective in droves.
Wow, I thought they all sort of did in a way. So what makes this one stand out?
Well, Bob Baer really brings it this time, Bri. And listen to the overlap of his comments and what Chapman says. They do cover some of the same ground, but I think what it does is it validates their ideas, and everybody seems to be focused on the same basic issues right now. So if there's an object lesson in today's episode, aside from longevity, it's that. And I tell you, these guys are senior people. They know that of which they speak. Pay attention. And you should also pay attention to this fine list of sponsors.
Oh, yeah. Okay, you're right.
You got that in hand.
I do. We're very lucky. We have great sponsors. They've been with us for ages, and they're all friends of ours. So the title sponsors of Fully Threaded Radio are Brighton Best International, Gerbil Fasteners, and Star Stainless Screw Company. Brighton Best International, tested, tried and true. Gerbil Fasteners, quality the first time. Star Stainless, right off the shelf for over 70 years. Also sponsoring Fully Threaded Radio are Buckeye Fasteners, BTM Manufacturing, Eurolink Fastener Supply Service, InSequel Software, ND Industries, Parker Fasteners, 3Q Inc., Stillfast, Volt Industrial Plastics, Würth Industry North America, and Solution Industries, home of Solution Man. So thanks for being sponsors. Thanks for keeping this whole podcast going, or helping to keep it going. And we appreciate the long-term commitments, okay?
Get with us anytime, folks. The email address here is ftr@fullythreaded.com. There will be a couple of opportunities during the episode today where you might want to remember that, because we will be throwing a couple of things out there. ftr@fullythreaded.com. Tell you, one of our sponsors who I keep trying to get on the podcast, Bri, is Mark over there at 3Q Inc. I'm like, hey, man, you got to get out here and jump in. But, you know, he just is not the podcast kind of guy. He said, well, what's the big news coming out of there? And, well, you know, like everybody, he's doing what he can to ramp up the operation. For 22, they've added a whole bunch of new packaging and material handling equipment. And over in their Taiwan operation, they've got a whole slew of new cold forming capability. So lead times are still on the long side, which is completely out of their control.
Out of anyone's control.
Right. But their capabilities are growing. During this time of labor shortages, customers can take advantage of 3Q Inc.'s secondary processing, kitting, bagging. Give them a call. So as we've hinted, there are several milestones to note during this episode today, Bri, but sadly, well, this is a little bit of a trick comment. Sadly, there is not going to be any kind of a legacy with the Tough Mudder race. Why is that, you ask? Well,
yeah, I do. Why is that?
Right. Many of you will recall that with great fanfare, a whole group of us did a Tough Mudder race last year in conjunction with the MWFA Fastener Week, and it was a lot of fun, and we got to know each other very well, and we made hay out of it, you know, with social media and elsewhere. Completely confident in the fact that we'd be doing a repeat in 22, you know, if the world permitted it. As it turns out, because of scheduling and the way that Fastener Week is rolled out, we will not be doing the Tough Mudder. However, we will be doing another 5K obstacle race. It's a different race, though. So the trick is, it won't be the Tough Mudder. This one is called, oh God, what is it? Insane. What is it, Bri? Rugged Maniac. It's the Rugged Maniac, folks. 22. It's happening on Saturday, August 20th. And that's the Saturday before the MWFA Fastener Week festivities kick off. Details for this event can be found at ruggedmaniac.com. I know, I don't like the name either.
I know.
Nevertheless, this is what it is. The actual race itself looks pretty cool, Bri. This one is going to happen in Gray's Lake, which is a little closer than last year when we had to go all the way to Rockford. It's got 25 obstacles, though. How many did we have last year? Do you remember? It was the same distance, but I think there was only
9
12.
or 10.
10?
I think so.
So less running, more
Clambering over things.
Yeah, trying to avoid flying elbows and getting washed downstream in a massive current or falling off a giant inflatable slide of some kind.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, it's all in good fun. And one of the beauties of it is that's the only reason we're doing it. There's really no other pressure involved as far as I know. I mean, we don't have any sponsorship or other overhead. So we're just going to go out there in the name of getting to know your fellow fastener people and have a lot of fun. So I wanted to throw it out there because many people indicated that they regretted they didn't get involved with the Tough Mudder last year. Well, this year you can get in on the team. And to do that, I don't know, reach out to GH3 over at Brighton or GQ over at Abbott-Interfast, or you can use that handy FTR email address I mentioned a moment ago. That's FTR@fullythreaded.com. We'll get you the links you need. Bob is pretty fastidious about getting all the entries together, so he's already given everyone the hurry up on that. So if you're inclined or you're curious, let us know.
Yeah.
And with that, we're going to take a quick break and then dive right in. Else, we're going to reach another milestone, that being the longest on-record opening segment, which we want to avoid. We want to take you right into the sweet spot of this one, everybody. Thanks again for joining us. It's Fully Threaded.
These guys aren't screwing around much. Brian and Eric, Fully Threaded Radio, Internet Talk Radio for the fastener industry.
At Star, the sum of all we do delivers what we consider Star quality. What began decades ago in a small-town garage paved the way for Star Stainless, a foundation built upon hard work, dedication, commitment, and partnerships. It's not just strictly the quality of the products we sell or the service we offer, but the approach in everything we do. Thanks for working with us throughout the years. Let's successfully kick off 2022 together. At Star Stainless, our quality is more than products.
In continued efforts to improve the industry standard, Goebel Fasteners has developed a patented new multi-grip lock bolt system made completely from T304 stainless steel. In applications where an extensive grip range is needed and a consistent flush pin break to the collar is favorable, the Goebel T304 stainless steel lock bolt system is the new and improved standard in the market. Essentially, the T304 stainless steel lock bolt system's extensive grip range and various sizes can replace up to 14 sizes of the classic 6-groove locking fastener system. Goebel Fasteners, the leading rivet source.
Brighton-based International offers alloy steel inch and metric series socket products, available in both electro and mechanically zinc-plated finishes that provide superior corrosion resistance for high-strength applications. Electroplated inch socket products are zinc-plated to ASTM F1941, while electroplated metric socket products are zinc-plated to ISO 4042. Both are baked to relieve hydrogen embrittlement and provide a bright finish. Mechanically zinc-plated inch and metric series socket products are plated to ASTM B695. Brighton-based International stocks a full line of socket products off the shelf at all of our nationwide locations for quick fulfillment of your needs. Visit brightonbest.com for convenient 24-hour order placement.
Hey, this is Clayton Allen from Buckeye Fasteners in Cleveland, Ohio, and you're listening to Fully Threaded Radio.
Yes, we know we have received several emails. There's a website with a surprisingly similar color scheme and logo design to FCH sourcing network, that is. But folks, you should accept no substitutes.
Right.
Get out to fastenersclearinghouse.com anytime you need a hard-to-find fastener or there's a glitch in your supply chain. FCH Sourcing Network. We've been doing it since 06, everyone. And as many of you know, that's our main gig. Keeps the lights on around here. Well, looking at the new Link magazine, Bri.
When we look past the copycat logo, it looks remarkably like ours as well as the same colors, you mean?
Yes. And in doing so, we realize quickly that it's the 45th year of Distributors Link magazine. Congratulations, Leo and Tracy.
Right.
It's an achievement.
It is, absolutely. Longtime friends of most of the industry, actually, including ours.
There's nobody that ever says a bad word about Link or either one of those two people. And you're going to want to immediately turn to page 70 of the winter edition. Just hit the streets. Kind of a big deal. Jackie Ventura is right there. She's got her own feature article. It's about time, I'd say, Bri. She's looking pretty happy there with her ginormous cup and in the foreground, the BTM U-Bolt blend coffee. A few pots of that are consumed over there at Ventura Industrial Products. I could tell you that right now, Bri. After you get done gazing at that article, flip back to page 29. There's a piece about two of our friends, Linfast and Solution Industries. Headline, 2 leaders in value-added service, now united. Most of you know about the big news that splashed recently about Linfast's acquisition of Solution Industries. Sounds like they're going to maintain Solution with its great reputation for doing all kinds of things nobody else dares to do. So Solution Man isn't going anywhere. He's going to be flying around here, and he'll be flying around the podcast at least for the next year.
Good.
Which is great news all the way around. Stories right here in Link Magazine, too.
Yeah, we've had a long association with Solution, too.
Goes back quite a ways. Like to congratulate Tim Vath. He was named GM of Solution Industries. And we're going to have him and John Newman from Linfast on the podcast next episode, everybody. We'll delve into more of that. Oh, and one more milestone that we'll point out, Bri, before we get to Holden Lewis. The Fastener Hall of Fame is 40 years old, as it turns out. And I got an email here from Marty Nolan, who has returned to the chairmanship of the Fastener Industry Coalition. That's right, the FIC is still out there, everybody, in case you forgot. They manage the Hall of Fame, and they take it very seriously. He asked us to remind everybody that the Hall of Fame nomination process, it takes a while to do it correctly, Bri.
I know. Well, you do have to think about it, but quite a lot, actually.
And even though the deadline for nomination applications isn't until June, apparently, they're ready to start working on this right away. So if you have somebody in mind that you think should be a Hall of Fame inductee, get out to the Emerald website and grab that application. Take a look at what it takes to get it done. Do a good job. They really do look at those applications very closely. And they're looking forward to beginning the process for the class of 22. No word yet on how many inductees there will be this year, Bri.
Aha. So we have a surprise waiting for us then.
I think it's going to be 2 or 3. I don't think it's going to be that big of a surprise, but you never know. Seems like a way more complicated issue than it would seem at first. Everybody's got their own idea about it, and there's been a lot of talk about it, but I think it'll be 2 or 3 again. We don't have a dog in that fight, Bri.
No, I know. Yeah, we haven't been around for nearly long enough.
Unlike the FDI, which has been around for 10 years. That makes no sense because we've been around a lot longer than that. But hey, reaching for a segue in the absence of any kind of pre-scripted material, why don't we...
Right, so what happened to the script then?
Where are those writers? I don't know. Maybe they got stuck in the snowstorm this morning. I don't... It's the weirdest thing. All right, we're going to play this conversation with Holden Lewis, and I was really glad that he accepted my invitation because I don't get a chance to talk to him enough these days. You know, he's a senior guy now, and last time actually that I tried reaching, I did reach out. I just didn't hear anything back. Jackie and I were watching Hallmark movies of all things. Well, Jackie was watching. I was in the same room. But I looked up and noticed that the hero in one of these Hallmark movies he was a dead ringer for Holden. So I texted him and just said, hey, man, you got a moonlighting gig with the Hallmark? You know, but strangely, he didn't reply.
Right.
Dead ringer, I tell you.
Yeah. Actually, Holden came to one of the Fastener techs, years ago, actually, when he still was at BB&T Capital Markets. Remember, and we had a whole thing in the early days of the FDI.
Oh, I remember vividly.
Stand up in front of a whole group of people and explain how it all worked. That's when we brought our friend Christopher over from Germany, because we had to run sort of a audio-visual thing that was way beyond our capabilities.
Oh, I remember vividly. He did a great job. And Holden did well also. That was at one of the big MWFA events in Rosemont.
Right.
It's going back a few years. Fortunately, Holden responded when I reached out to him this time. We had a great conversation talking about 10 years of FDI. Let's play it now.
Cool.
Our first guest of the 2022 podcast season doesn't appear on Fully Threaded Radio too often these days, but he was a regular part of our analysis team in the early years, appearing on 7 of the first 20 episodes of the podcast. And that all began with episode 2 back in April of 2010. He was with BB&T Capital Markets at that time. Holden Lewis subsequently went on to accept the position of CFO of Fastenal, and he's joining us again to mark 10 full years of the Fastener Distributor Index, which he and I created in January of 2012. So today's report of the December numbers makes it a complete decade of Fastener data and good times. I can hardly believe it, and I'm sure he feels the same. Holden, thanks for being here. How's Winona treating you these days?
It's treating me very well, Eric, and thank you. And I also can't believe it's been 10 years since we hatched this thing. But we always talked about how this is an industry that doesn't have a lot of data, and it still doesn't have a lot of data. But I think that this has been a nice addition to sort of the library of ways that people can analyze the business. And I know internal to Fastenal, we certainly have people in our business that refer to it as well. So yeah, it's crazy that it's been 10 years, but I think that that gives it legitimacy. And yeah, folks here in Winona use it as well. It's having an impact. Congratulations.
Yes, I appreciate it. And the same to you. I know that early on, you were always drilling home that point that we needed to get a couple years of data under our belt to do some interesting things. And we started to do those things such as seasonal adjustments and other things. And then, as I mentioned, subsequently, you had to move on in your career. But we'll touch on that in a minute. Point being, we have 10 years worth now and the credibility. In case you were curious, folks, while I was researching Holden's earlier appearances on the podcast, the first FDI episode was number 39, and that was the February episode in 2012. So you were also on that episode, Holden.
Yeah, and look, I think you struck pay dirt when I had an opportunity and handed this off. As you know, David Manthe, an analyst now at Baird, he does a great job with it. And some of the things you're talking about that have been created, I know you and I worked together 10 years ago to kind of create this thing. And and from what I see, because you still include me every month on the mailing of it, a lot of that stuff is still there, but there's been nice, let's call them innovations, in terms of the forward-looking index and things like that David has really brought into the analysis of the metric. The other thing that I will say is it's actually been pretty impressive. And again, you talk about needing to get some history, and when I sort of stepped off the project, we didn't have as much of the history yet, but as that history is piled up, and as you compare it to our public monthly results, it's uncanny how close they track each other.
Yeah. Yep.
That's kind of neat.
It is, yes. And we're going to leave discussion of the latest numbers to McNulty, and he's got Bob GQ Baer with him today. They'll be coming up next segment, folks, with the latest. But in your current role as CFO of a publicly traded company, you've got your own reports coming out. We don't want to complicate your life. I just hope that together for a few minutes, we could bask in the satisfaction of having launched this thing, and I believe we're doing just that. So, last time you were on the podcast, I think it was shortly after you joined up over there in Winona. So that'll end my research that I'm spilling out here, impressing everyone deeply, I'm sure, Holden. That was back in September of 17.
Actually, it would have been 2016. Well, when I joined Fastenal, it would have been 2016. But I think the last conversation that we had on this program would have been, in 2017.
Right. So very cool. Now, folks, you're probably wondering, well, how did I get hooked up with this character, Holden Lewis, who went on to greatness after all, to begin with? Well, I was in a meeting, or I was waiting to get into a meeting with, I believe it was Polipnik up there in Winona. I was standing in the lobby of the main building and sort of cooling my heels, thinking about what I was going to say. And I already had it in my mind to build Fully Threaded Radio, to develop a podcast. And as I was reading some of the, I guess they were press clippings that used to be on the wall before you remodeled over there, there was your name. Of course, these are pre-Fastenal days for you. And you were an analyst with BB&T. And I don't know if it was in the journal or where it was clipped from, Holden, but you were there. And I said, I'm going to reach out to this guy. And that's how I initially got the idea of inviting you onto the podcast. And subsequently, of course, we hatched the whole Fastener Distributor Index concept.
That's right. And you're right. You did reach out. And for those listeners who don't recall, prior to my current role at Fastenal, I was actually an equity analyst covering industrial distribution. And so I covered Fastenal for probably 15 or 16 years before taking this position. It's been kind of neat, I think, sort of being on the outside than stepping on into the inside. Maybe that's a conversation for a different time. But that's why I say that this is an industry that doesn't have a lot of macro data for business owners in the fastener world to rely on. And, so when you reached out to me and we began that conversation, as we got to know each other a little bit, you have great contacts in the industry. And I think the idea was sort of to lean on each other in such a way that you had great contacts in the industry and the ability to maybe reach out and say, hey, here's what we're trying to do, and kind of create the content, if you will. And then I had the ability to kind of create the analysis and the metrics that would be tracked. And it really kind of came together with both of us kind of bringing that to the table. And I do remember, I think in those early years, you brought a fair number of fairly large players into it, but the goal was always to expand it even further, to get a nice critical mass. And not sure where you are with that process now that you're working with David Manthe on it.
Well, it's something that we still have honored the idea of keeping all that information very secure, so we don't share it a lot. But
sure,
and I think people appreciate that and they respect it, and that's why some of these big name companies, and they're all privately held North American fastener distributors. I mean, that's the only criteria really that there is, and there's only one representative per company that participates in the monthly survey. But beyond that, I think we've done a very good job because it's an excellent cross-reference of companies within different sectors in fastener distribution and also sizes. So we've got some of the, $1 million, $2 million companies, all the way up to the really big ones. And so, yeah, I'm just thrilled about that part of it. And from what you said a few minutes ago, Holden, about it tracking pretty faithfully to what you see, we've heard it too many times from too many kinds of companies to think that it isn't effective and accurate from that standpoint. So, pat yourself on the back for creating the framework for all that.
Yeah, and it's been refined, but it is true. And again, I don't think that I'm spilling anything here, because you do a nice job, or you and David do a nice job of showing that relationship with a little bit of a lag. And so I really do encourage listeners to this program, if you're not contributing, you heard Eric talk about how your information and identity, the privacy of that is tantamount, but the more people we can get participating in this, the more accurate it becomes. And that's not to the advantage of any one person. This is just an opportunity to have some data, some information that is relevant to this industry. Because when I look at it, the first thing I think of is, if it tracks so well, is any particular business owner, are they tracking the same way? Are they not moving in the same direction? And if so, why? Are they gaining share? Are they losing share? I mean, those are the types of information I think that one can glean from this metric as it's evolved. And so I really do encourage anybody who's listening that doesn't participate in this to reach out, because the more people, it already is so reflective, but the more people that is in it, the more valuable, the more accurate it becomes.
FDIsurvey.com is where you can go to get connected with us on this. And I didn't really expect this to turn into a commercial so much from the FDI, Holden, but I appreciate it, and it's true. So we'll take all the new blood that we can get.
I might be speaking to my own book, because you know how much I love data. But no, it's true. It's been fun to watch it evolve, and I know that David really is. It's funny how David came into this. David and I used to be competitors, but David probably understands distribution better than anybody else in the equity research space. And, I respected him as a competitor, and quite frankly, I respect him more now that he is an analyst covering Fastenal, and he just does a great job with it. So I hope you're having fun with David. He's a good guy.
You bet. And he, of course, works with a team. Quinn Fredrickson does a lot of the heavy lifting on that team. So they do a great job. As you mentioned a few minutes ago, Holden, it was right about the time that he came into the group that he added the forward-looking indicator. And that has really added a lot of fun, I think, and more stuff for the statistician geeks to play with. And I have to say that is one of the biggest conversation generators as part of the FDI, really.
Yep. And if you, this was always patterned after the Purchasing Managers Index.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
And one of the things I always liked about the Purchasing Managers Index, there's not a lot of leading indicators in the industrial world, unless you're in an industry that has a lot of backlog. There's just not a lot of leading indicators. But the PMI, the Purchasing Managers Index, has always been a great one. And the work that I've done around the Purchasing Managers Index kind of says it tends to lead our actual trends by between 3 and 5 months. So call it 4 months. And what I'm looking forward to seeing how this develops over time is, do you see that same leading sort of element to the leading indicator? And I know that you guys lag it by a month. Be interesting to see if if as you get more people and things like that, if that 1 month becomes 4 months, and now you have really some insight that you can manage around that comes out of it. But yeah, it's, again, we always pattern this thing after the PMI, and it's kind of working in that way, and looks like it leads a little bit, and it's kind of neat how that works.
Yeah, it is. While I got you on the line here, you're probably one of the experts in this. Why is it that some people refer to the PMI as the PMI, others call it the ISM report or the ISM index? It seems like there's some confusion out there.
Probably made worse by the fact that they change their names every now and again too.
Yeah.
But the ISM is the Institute for Supply Management that actually puts the PMI, the Purchase Managers Index, together. So the ISM is the overall organization, and their product is the PMI.
Got it. I sometimes throw that out there, and as I'm trying to explain the FDI, and I get looks of confusion. And I think it's as simple as what you just said. I don't think it's widely understood, though.
Yeah, it's they are used pretty synonymously, but I'm not sure. I'm always cognizant of the fact that in my role as an equity analyst, my entire job was to study companies and study the things that cause those companies to change. It wouldn't surprise me if a lot of your listeners are so into the day-to-day of running businesses, right? Doing tangible, real things that
right.
they may not be so steeped in government data or other industry data. And I get why. Now that I'm on this side of the wall, running a business is hard work, and I get that PMI or ISM is not top of mind in terms of what it is. But for those who are data minded, who like to try to maybe at least kind of understand the environment that they're in, it really is as good a data point as we have within the industrial space. I've studied the PMI for over 20 years. And it really is a incredibly reliable indicator of what's coming down the pike 3 to 5 months down the road. For anybody who has to try to plan within the industrial space, they really need to include that on there. And again, like I said, the FDI was really intended to be a fastener specific equivalent measure, which, that's been done before. There's also a metalworking one out there, right? And so this idea of creating specific indices to kind of reflect individual types of markets, there's a few of those out there, fasteners being one of them. It's at disposal.
Well, when you used to speak on the podcast and always refer to the PMI, I had that light bulb moment, and here we are. So, yeah, very cool. I know you're a very busy guy these days, so I'm not going to keep you too much. I appreciate you, Holden Lewis, CFO of Fastenal, joining us again here on the podcast. I hope you'll come back maybe after your report here in a few days, I guess, which is really sort of an important thing for you, but it's also very time-consuming. One other question for you, though. We had a headline last episode with Mike McNulty. He was talking about something kind of exciting for Fastenal. That was this fantastic new headquarters that you've constructed in downtown Winona. What can you say?
Well, it's not technically a headquarters. It's let's consider it to be a part of our headquarters suite around Winona. We have a number of buildings around here where different people, different roles play in. And so, however, it really does reflect that the company continues to grow. As everyone listening knows, as you grow, you can certainly become more productive. But as you grow, you also need more people. You need more talent. And we're always looking for that. And this building is a reflection of a few things. One, it's a reflection of our growth and the need for more talent, and the fact that we were kind of outgrowing the buildings that we had around town. And so this, in the most simple terms, this represents additional capacity for growth for us. It also reflects an investment into Winona as well. We're going to put 400 to 450 people in this new building, and I'm fortunate because the finance teams get to move into the new building. I'm speaking from it as we speak, and then IT will also be in this new building, but it's going to put 400 to 450 more people into downtown Winona where we weren't there before. And, this was a project not only for Fastenal, but it was a project in concert with Winona specifically to really help to bring more energy to the downtown area. So it's an investment in our community. And then one of the things that I like in this building as well is it's actually solar powered. And so we haven't hooked it up yet, but that's coming very shortly. And once it does, it's going to be a green building. And we'll talk about how it's a green building and how we've reduced costs through it. And so I think it's nice that it fits into, that element as well, because we hire a lot of people and we hire a lot of people out of college and things of that nature. And, that generation does like to be a part of something bigger than themselves. They like to have experiences as much as anything else. And I think by being able to have this new building here to support our business, but also to support our town and do so in a green way, I think it's something that it's cool. There's articles out there because it's a big deal for us. And I think it helps to brand us a little bit, perhaps in ways that people hadn't thought of before.
Very cool. Well, I think you're right. We do need to have an episode that touches on that. We really haven't covered the idea of, let's say it this way, just efficient state-of-the-art buildings in the fastener industry. So maybe we can use your new building or your new facilities as a subject for that.
At some point, they're going to have to bolt all these solar panels onto roofs. So there's synergy.
Yeah, now you're talking like a fastener man. Well, thanks again, Holden, for being here, and congratulations. You got a new building over there. Now we have a new decade of the FDI.
That's right. And hey, I just want to give you also congratulations. Who knew that 10 years ago that this program would still be running strong with the faithful listenership that it's got? And obviously, we're here to talk about the product that you have around the FDI. But at this point, I would say your little project has legs.
I'll take
Congratulations.
it. Thanks a lot, Holden. It's Holden Lewis, Fastenal, and we'll be back momentarily with more Fully Threaded Radio. Stay with us.
MacGyver. By the looks of that detonator, this whole place is gonna blow in just 10 seconds.
Just stay calm, Judy. All we need is a metric fastener manufactured to an ISO or DIN standard.
10 seconds, MacGyver. What about the fastener?
Not a problem. Eurolink specializes in hard-to-find metric fasteners. Delivered. Did you contact the sales team at EurolinkFSS.com like I asked you to last week?
Well, no. I tried other importers, but they couldn't fulfill the quotes.
Oh, Judy, now we're completely screwed. Eurolink. Hard-to-find metric fasteners. Delivered.
Parker Fasteners is your premier cold heading manufacturer, forging the future with precision and quality as our top priority. When you think of domestically produced sockets and tamper-proof screws from alloy and stainless, including A286, think Parker Fasteners. Forge the future with Parker Fasteners. Visit Parker Fasteners online today at parkerfasteners.com.
Solution Man, Ken.
Solution Man, you're my fastener hero.
Just doing my job, ma'am.
SOLUTION, SOLUTION. Solution Industry. We are Solution.
This is Rosa, the preferred riveter at Brighton Bass International. You're listening to Fully Threaded Radio with Eric and Brian.
Brian and Eric back with you. It's the online fastener boogie machine. And it's the news segment, Bri.
I know, yes.
You can't wait for this, can you? You're a huge McNulty fan. You know, the Fastener News Desk is another source of news as well. I'll tell you, those girls don't tweet their own horn enough, because I recently got wind that they produce a weekly YouTube segment that highlights the Fastener Week's headlines. Did you know that?
No, I did not know that.
And go out to YouTube, and their channel is Fastener TV. And everybody, these are the same people who bring you FastenerNewsDesk.com, where, incidentally, I recently got the factoid that I threw out last segment about the Fastener Hall of Fame reaching its 40-year milestone, because that's right there on the front page. So there you go.
Cool.
The Fastener News Report is brought to us by Volt Industrial Plastics, and the title sponsors of Fully Threaded Radio are Brighton Best International, Global Fasteners, and Star Stainless. You know, another guy who doesn't toot his own horn often enough is our own Mike McNulty, Bri. He's got his Fastener News Report on every episode of the podcast, but he also puts out a PDF. And man, that thing's got great details. It comes right to your inbox.
Well,
what could be better?
He's a detailed guy, isn't he? That's him. And also, I mean, what I really like, he sort of has an afterword statement, the back page report, which is really a commentary on all sorts of things. It could be about the United States, it could be about the world, but it's about something that's really bugging him, okay? And it's usually on pretty right on.
Yeah, a lot of people are big fans of the back page report and the Fastener News Report in general, actually. But he has become sort of the Tucker Carlson of the industry, you could say.
I prefer him to Tucker Carlson.
I'll tell you, on his latest PDF version, though, got a reminder of a couple of things coming up, including the PacWest Spring Tabletop Conference. We talked about that last episode. That's happening on March 16th through the 18th at the Westin Anaheim.
Yes.
In this issue, he also talks about the Fastener Show in Taiwan 22, plus a staff-compiled article on the top products of 2021, looking back. You can sign up for his weekly PDF at fastenertech.com.
Yep.
Last tidbit before we dive in to the actual Mike. The North Coast Fastener Association has announced the dates of its industry-renowned distributor social event, Bri.
Right, not to be missed, okay?
If everything holds together, this time it's scheduled for May 5th in Cleveland, and it's being held in a different location this year from where it has been. I don't have the new location, and it's not on the website yet, but we'll keep you advised on that. I'm sure it's known. It's just not being published for some reason. But the NCFA Distributor Social, May 5th, if you're anywhere in the Midwest.
Or anywhere else. You could be on the East Coast too. It's still close.
You can get there.
Yeah.
And you won't regret it. Now, here's one little detail that, especially considering what we're about to say, and that is this year, Brian and Eric are announcing a new add-on event to the Distributor Social. We're calling it simply Fishing with Brian and Eric. You know, over the years, we've had the pleasure of fishing with different people. And so we decided this year, if all things go our way, we're going to watch the weather and you're going to come out for a few days and we're going to jam people into the boat and do a little fishing. This is going to be in pursuit of the elusive musky lunge.
Yeah.
That'll be on fabulous West Branch Reservoir.
Which has been the home of numerous muskies. They do exist there, okay? Even I've caught them there.
You're not guaranteed a fish, but you're guaranteed to be in the right place, and we should have a good time doing this. So depending on how many people want to get in on it, we'll do some scheduling. We'll do some half-day trips, cycle people in and out, have some fun with it.
It'll be fun if the weather's sort of even half okay.
We'll watch local weather patterns and give more details as the time approaches. But if you're a fisherman or you know somebody who will be attending the Distributor Social, that's a Thursday. So a few days before, a few days after, we'll be running back and forth to West Branch. Reach out to ftr@fullythreaded.com. Maybe you can hop in the boat with us.
All right. Be fun.
Should be.
And you might even be really lucky.
Yeah, I'm not going to mention that guests seem to always get the big fish for some reason when we do this kind of thing. But you're due for a hog, Brian.
I know. It's sort of annoying, really.
They seem to like it, though.
I don't.
Fishing with Brian and Eric. I'm looking forward to it. And I'm looking forward to this edition of the Fastener News Report. Brian, the honors, please.
Right. And now, the news about screws that you can use. Here's Mike McNulty.
Thanks, Eric and Brian. This is Mike McNulty from Fastener Technology International Magazine, bringing you the Fastener News Report, which is sponsored by Würth Industrial Plastics, makers of the world's finest plastic fasteners. During this last month of football frenzy, the Ohio State Buckeyes, the Utah Utes, and the Pasadena Tournament of Roses Association treated American football fans to a classic January 1st bowl game. And 9 days later, the Georgia Bulldogs dramatically won its first national football championship in 41 years, while the Cleveland Browns professional football team extended to 33 its depressing and dubious streak of years without back-to-back winning seasons, but I am still focused on fasteners and ready to deliver today's Fastener News Report. In this episode, Abbott-Interfast President Bob Baer joins us to reveal the latest results of the Fastener Distributor Index, also known as the FDI. Also in today's broadcast, we have our top story on Ramco Specialties, as well as newsmaker headlines from MW Industries, Specialty Bolt and Screw, Gobel Fasteners, Yardley Inserts, ND Industries, EFG, GL Hewitt, Howmet Fastening, and Women in the Fastener Industry, also known as the Wi-Fi. On the back page report, we're going to talk about movies. We'll get to all of that and the latest FDI results right after this.
My name is Joseph Otrower. We got really good people. Work ethic, you know. You do a little more than what you're getting paid for. You know, I'm a great believer in that. That's how you get ahead.
We are Volt.
If you grow too fast, you can go broke real quick. And growing too slow is not as dangerous, but it's boring.
We are Volt.
We know how to build the tools, and if you don't have the tools, you can't do anything.
Würth Industrial Plastics, makers of the world's finest plastic fasteners.
This is Jake Davis, president of BTM Manufacturing. Happy New Year to you and your team. we are excited to begin a new year focusing on nurturing customer relationships, maintaining superior quality, and offering unmatched customer service. As we head into Q1, we look forward to seeing many of you at our industry's upcoming events. Our first stop will be the PacWest Spring Conference and Trade Show, March 16th through the 18th in beautiful Anaheim, California. We will continue to hit several networking events as well. We are eager to get back to in-person events and look forward to visiting with all of you this spring. BTM Manufacturing, commitment to quality.
Cut the no quotes out of the equation. Eurolink is your go-to resource for uncommon and hard-to-find metric fasteners that others can't even quote. Contact the sales team at EurolinkFSS.com and get your hard-to-find metric fasteners delivered.
Back to the Fastener News Report with Mike McNulty.
The seasonally adjusted Fastener Distributor Index for December 2021 dipped slightly to 56.2, down from 57.6 the previous month, but still a result indicating overall industry strength. Fastener Distributor Index data is collected and analyzed by the FCH Sourcing Network and Baer. The FDI seeks to identify demand, pricing, and outlook trends within the American fastener distribution industry. To get some insight on these results, we talked to Abbott-Interfast President Bob Baer. Hi, Bob. Thanks for joining us on the Fastener News Report.
Hi, Mike. Thanks for having me on. It's been a while.
It's been a while, but you're on a special time. This is the completing of 10 years of data of the FDI, so it's a 10-year celebration of FDI data and analysis, and we've got one of the top guys on the podcast this time to talk about it.
Oh, wow. Well, I appreciate the compliment. 10 years of anything's a milestone.
So what do you think about these latest results?
Well, I think the fact that we dipped a little bit slightly in the month of December is definitely indicative of where we're heading in the upcoming year. I know everybody's talking about a strong year again, at least first 6 months of it, and I would certainly agree with that. As a lot of our product is still sitting out in the ocean, and as it comes in, there's an urgency to get it out the door. So I think business and shipments are still going to be strong for the next 6 months. But I do feel that the slight drop in December is going to be a trend that probably continues.
So kind of stabilizing as the year goes on?
Yeah, we've seen just tremendous growth last year and a half. I mean, since COVID hit, we had a little dip for maybe a quarter, and then it's just been phenomenal. So I don't know that can continue for the entire year. And given all the issues we have with supply chain problems, port problems, people problems, I heard on the last episode the 3 Ps. I thought that was a great reference. Yeah. Those all continue. Employment's getting a little better. I think employment numbers came down, although some numbers are through the roof. The Great Resignation continues with 4.5 million people quitting their job in November.
I saw that.
Yeah, that's amazing, isn't it? Yet unemployment numbers are down. So
they're not looking, I guess, are they?
Well, that's interesting because somewhere along the line I read that unincorporated, self-employed incorporated workers applying for tax IDs are up like 56% from 2019 till now, which means a lot of people are leaving the workforce from a company and deciding to, do it on their own.
Yeah, well, I think that's a good point.
Yeah, so they're leaving the workforce, they're starting up their own companies, and that's related to, like anything else, I'm sure part of it is COVID related. It's interesting how COVID has just dramatically and permanently changed the workplace. And anybody out there trying to hire knows that it's just extremely difficult and very competitive to get people in. Teachers, nurses, restaurant service people, they're all leaving their jobs for safety reasons and for working conditions, overworked. So I think that has a lot to do with it. But that being said, it doesn't help those of us who do actually need a workforce in the workplace.
Yeah, I know everybody's got the help wanted signs and slogans. I saw that I think it's the military is offering $50,000 bonuses for certain types of candidates now, just for signing bonuses. So something to consider.
Yeah, I did not see that number anywhere. That's amazing.
I don't think it's for everybody, every enlisted person, but for certain categories of people that are doing 50,000 bonus.
Yeah, incredible times we're in, definitely.
Yeah, right. So yeah, that consent, employment was the one number this month that kind of drag things down a little bit because the employment had the biggest drop this month. We'll jump into some of the numbers here. While sales and pricing remained at high levels in the 70s and 90s respectively, while both customer and respondent inventory stayed at low levels, which is good, which means they need to be replenished. But the employment did take a hit. And I think one of the comments in the Baer analysis, people are just getting fatigued with the whole work thing of trying to get people.
Yeah. Exactly. I think that's a big part of it. And, you mentioned pricing. I saw that the consumer price index hit 7% for the year average.
Right.
And the last time we were that high was 1982.
So another anniversary.
Yeah, exactly.
40 years. Yeah.
Inflation is just running away. I mean, everywhere you look. I talked to a colleague this morning, and the nickel volatility this week is just all over the place, and pricing continues to escalate. And of course, I'm sure that's a big part of everybody's sales jump is the pricing jump.
Mm-hmm.
But somewhere along the line, consumers are going to pay for this in the end, and it doesn't seem to slow down, and there doesn't seem to be an end to it.
Yeah, there'll be a catch-up and a kind of a mental gridlock coming soon. I'm just looking at the data chart here, and it shows that the year-to-year pricing number was 96.9, which is the highest number on this chart going back to May of 2020.
Yeah, and I think everybody in our industry is experiencing that. And it's a combination of things. It's a combination of pricing going up, freight going up, trucking going up. I saw that there's now 102 containers sitting out in the ocean waiting for berth, and 10% of their workforce is out. On Monday, they had 800 workers out, and the truckers are now sitting there 2-3 days at a time. That's not economically beneficial for them. Truckers are starting to join the Great Resignation, and they're starting to jump from one firm to another as trucking people become unavailable, and other firms are offering bonuses just like everybody else.
Right.
You really need to stand out. You need to be doing something different to not only retain your good people, but to bring other people in right now.
Definitely unique time. So, yeah, that will continue to be an issue for a while, I guess. Let's move on to the forward-looking indicator. It's basically the same or unchanged at 63.7 versus 64.0 last month. But it is a continuation of a mostly gradual downward descent that started last June. Kind of maybe ties into what you're saying about things can't stay at this high level for too much longer.
Yes, for sure. It's definitely a trend, and it's been a trend for 6-7 months now. And I think we're still going to be in expansion. We're still going to be above that 50 mark for a long time, but we won't sustain the levels. Exactly. More moderate. And supply chain, when that'll start to ease up, I think people might feel a little better about the number leveling off. Mm-hmm. I'm just not sure when that's going to happen. We recently got a quote from overseas. It's the highest number I've ever seen since I've been in this industry 30 years, but 330-day lead time to get product in.
Wow.
I mean, that's one of the reasons many of us, yeah, exactly. I think that's one of the reasons overseas importing became a thing to do is back in the day. U.S. manufacturers were, 260, 280 days out. If you're going to do that, you might as well go overseas and save some of the manufacturing costs. But that's no longer the case on a lot of product, especially stainless steel, which is extremely hard to come by.
So the equations are flipping, or the lead times are flipping, I guess. But I imagine domestic factories are pretty long lead times too. Not 330 days, but.
No, they definitely are. Lead times domestically are probably 50% longer than they used to be.
Right.
And a lot of the lead times, they're not necessarily have to do with capacity right now. What we're getting back from our factories is material availability is the issue, and they get it in. When they finally do get it in and get product run, you're sitting waiting to put it on the ship. Then the ship's waiting in port. Then the container's waiting in the rail yard. Then it gets, all the way to Chicago in our case, and it's sitting in a warehouse waiting to be picked up. So as things improve, that number will come down, that lead time will come down. But I don't see a light for at least 6-8 months down the road here.
Just have to live with it. Well, that 6 month ties into, the FDI always asks questions about the 6 month outlook, which actually showed some solid improvement this time around. We had 44% of respondents expecting things to be better 6 months later, 50% expecting them to be the same, and only 6 expecting business to be worse. So that kind of bolsters your idea that we're going to stay in the expansion area, and it seems like it's kind of firmed up the general opinion on the FDI respondents.
Yeah, we're in very unique times. We're experiencing record sales, but I wish I could say the same for the bottom line. We're sacrificing a lot of margin in many cases. We're bearing the costs of air freight for product that we absolutely need to get in. We're looking at longer lead times. We're doubling up on orders like everybody else. And I think the key right now, at least for us, what we're doing is communication with your customer. We've spent more time expediting and planning in the last year than I think ever. And in a lot of cases, it's well worth it. It pays off. And unfortunately, sometimes the answer is you just need to prepare your customer and give them the straight scoop on what's coming and what we're facing in terms of getting that order in. It used to be a struggle to get an order in from a customer when they already have an order, but it's gotten much, much easier to convince them.
Yeah, everybody's in the same situation. So let's move on. We had, as usual, people that do the survey share some of their comments and concerns, and the top 2 concerns, unsurprisingly, are number 1, supply chain, and number 2, inflationary cost pressures. It looks like they've gotten tired of talking about employment, so that's not in the top anymore. But one respondent said, quote, still uncertainty as to production in the industry. Supply chain delays and now COVID exposures are causing more production delays. Then regarding cost pressures, one respondent indicated, quote, cost increases, margin erosion continue to weigh on the company and our customers, unquote. Then another person said, freight costs are out of control. Inflation is rampant in spite of what the government thinks. And then another person said, this past December was our best one on record, tying in what you're saying. Sales and quoting never slowed down between Christmas and New Year's Day. Another respondent, the final one, said December is typically slower than the rest of the year, but still was elevated compared to these historic numbers. So the commentary kind of just mirrors everything that you've been saying here and we've been talking about.
Yeah, and I don't think it's a secret. I think everybody has been hearing the same thing now for the past, 4 or 5 months.
Yeah, right.
And by now, most of our customers are in tune with what's going on as well. All that does, while it's still difficult to keep up and make sure you keep your customer happy and provide product, it just puts us all on the same page. And when when their phone rings and they see your number, they know it's important to answer and to work with you as best as they can, so that we can do the best we can for them.
Okay, well, good. Yeah, that's pretty much kind of summarizes what's going on with the FDI. Is a little bit more of the same and a decent look forward. Let's take a look back at the last 10 years if we can for a moment here. I was looking at on page 3 of the report that Baer puts out. We've got 10 years of data, FDI data, seasonally adjusted. I don't know if you took a look at this, but I noticed like 3 big drops over the 10-year period, and now we're in a kind of a little bit of a slight drop most recently, but it's dropped from the highest point that it's ever been.
Yeah, I did. In fact, I did see that. I did look at the chart, and you are correct. We had 3 periods, 6 to 9 month periods where we were in the red for the most part during those periods. And, we actually have a peak back in July of 18, and we're pretty close to that peak this March 21, but we're starting to tail off again. So it's been on the downslide since earlier this year. And that little blip of a drop last year was the COVID-related drop before things just spiraled and took off again. I'm not sure where the chart will go from here. I think we're going to level out for a few months, but it is interesting when you step back and you look at 10 years worth of history. And I have a very wide TV screen as my computer monitor in a conference room. So I have this humongous picture in front of me trying to make sense out of it.
Right.
The one thing stands out for me for sure is since the forward-looking index started, it's just constantly above all the lines, always, which is good because that means we have a pretty positive industry. And
yeah, optimistic people, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. I hope, but it's a good. And I know Eric had Holden Lewis on in the beginning of before our report here, and they talked about all the time and effort that went into it. And I know you've been tracking this stuff for a long time, so it's good to take a look back as we get ready to look forward.
Yeah, and it's nice to have our own industry index. A lot of industries don't have that. The government keeps track of a lot of stuff, but this comes from our own people, our own input, and it's nice to hear all the different personalities on the show, talking about it, manufacturers, suppliers, distributors, importers. It really gives you a flavor for our industry on a monthly basis, just a little snapshot picture.
Yeah, definitely. So, hats off to Eric and Holden and everybody else who had this brainchild or had this idea to do it. And now it's obviously it was a good one because it's still going. And like you said, we've had lots of good people on the Fastener News Report and on the podcast talking about it and giving their perspective. And I think it helps out a lot and it's good for the industry.
Absolutely. And very, very happy to be the start of the next 10 years. So appreciate you calling me in today.
Have you back in 2032 when might be in the middle of a depression.
I got to tell you, 2032, I don't know what you'll be doing, but
you'll be retired?
I'll be on a golf course somewhere.
Well, yeah, I'll be 69 if I make it. So anyways, let's on that note, let's in closing give you a chance to tell the listeners what's going on at Abbott-Interfast as well as at the MWFA, which I know you guys had a big year last year, and I know you're quite involved with them.
Yeah, appreciate that. Wow, Abbott, we are going through some very exciting times. Besides hitting record sales for the last 2 to 3 years, we're expanding. We're actually looking out west, looking to branch out, and we've been hovering around the Rocky Mountain area, looking at space, and I think we're very close to signing on and getting a second warehouse out that way. So that's pretty exciting.
Is that where you're going to be golfing?
I don't know.
Or skiing, maybe.
I was thinking more Arizona or Florida for golfing.
Okay.
Skiing, absolutely. If we wind up in the Denver area, that would be awesome. But we are branching out, and we're actually going to be hiring out in those areas. We're expanding manufacturing. We're trying to take matters into our own hands to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
And we've just made in December, we made a $1 million commitment to manufacturing in our own plant. We're adding a couple CNC machines. We're moving some things around, rearranging our warehouse racking, and putting in some trying to get our barcode system put in place. So that's exciting. We recently hired a full-time representative who's on the ground in Taiwan, working for Abbott, and I hope within a year or two to have an office in Taiwan as well for some strategic sourcing. And lastly, well, not lastly, but probably one of the last major things is we're really working to expand our digital platform, putting a lot of R&D into digitally getting out there in the marketplace and promoting all of our divisions, not only Abbott, but our knob division, our deck screw division. And we're at the same time, we're implementing a new state-of-the-art CRM system. So there's a lot going on at Abbott, a lot of opportunity for those people in the industry might be looking to join a company who's expanding and growing. And the next couple of years are going to be very exciting here. So,
yeah, it sounds like you got a lot of good things going on. So maybe you won't be retiring in 10 years. I don't know.
I remember my grandfather worked till he was 70. I remember asking him when I was younger why you stay back then. People retired at 62, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, well, the good thing about working till you're 70 is the job gets easier and it's not as stressful. But I got to tell you, I think the last 2 years I've worked harder than I've ever worked in my life.
Probably, yeah, with all the trying to chase things down and every day being a crisis.
Yeah, it's a new challenge. And the minute you get one of them nipped in the bud, another one comes around the corner. So it keeps you on your toes for sure.
Yeah, well, work is good. So if you can do it, I say keep doing it.
Absolutely. Until I don't know that I'll ever get bored with it. I don't know that this industry that you can ever get bored. We're always learning. There's always new things. But we'll all get to a certain point where we say enough's enough. And
but I think tying into what you're saying before, things like settling down, you can't keep up this pace. So I would think that the amount of like crazy stress level should settle down as well.
Yeah, and it will. It always does. I mean, everything is peaks and valleys. If you've worked long enough, you've been through 2 or 3 downturns.
Right.
Never one like this. No, I mean, this is unique to all of us. But it's good. We learn from it, we grow from it, and then, the next generation will have all that history to rely on how to handle it, make it easier for them.
Yeah, and like looking back at the 10 years of the FDI, it goes down and it comes back up.
Just like the market, you look at the market chart, there's ups and downs, but the long-term line is always up.
Okay, anything about the MWFA? Last year was the 75th anniversary, I believe.
Yeah, we really had a banner year last year, and George Hunt, our current president, last year and again this year, really did a nice job of motivating and pushing the board to in my time with the MWFA was probably one of the highest quality levels of the MWFA in a long time. He really pushed us, and everybody on the board came to bat. Our members came to bat. We had an awesome 75th year anniversary Fastener Week, if you will, and we're going to try to repeat that this year on a smaller scale. Of course, we won't have the dinner, but we're planning a Fastener Week again in August with some additional new events and some education. And I think it's going to be another good year for us. We have our casual kind of low-key golf outing planned for May again, Screwed Up Open, if that works out. And again, our big event's going to be in August, our big week. And that is, we share that week with Fastener Training Institute, who comes to town and does some training. We have our intro class and heat treating plating classes, usually in the first half of the year. So things are moving along with the MWFA.
Yeah, it's definitely a good association that I've known about what you guys do for a long time, and definitely worthwhile to be involved with it. And if listeners want to check anything about the MWFA, they can go to mwfa.net, and they want to check out Abbott-Interfast and go to aicfast.com to see what's going on there as well.
Well, I appreciate you having me on and the opportunity to talk again on behalf of the industry and on our index, and look forward to hearing future broadcasts.
Yeah, thank you for joining us and sharing your insight and for everything that you've done with the FDI over the years, as well as at Abbott-Interfast and the MWFA. So it's good to talk to you again, and wish you all the best in 2022.
Thanks, Mike. Same here. Wish you the best and continued success, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.
You're welcome. That was Abbott-Interfast President Bob Baer. The FDI number for December was 56.2 versus 57.6 the previous month. Visit FDIsurvey.com to participate in the process and get a detailed PDF copy of Baird's monthly analysis. Now for today's top story. Ramco Specialties had a groundbreaking last month at its Hudson, Ohio headquarters for a 50,000 square foot expansion that will be used exclusively for fastener manufacturing. The addition brings the total Ramco footprint to over 210,000 square feet in Ohio for manufacturing, engineering, and office space. The construction is expected to be completed in June of 2022. This project is an investment in domestic manufacturing space and new equipment, which will expand the company's manufacturing capabilities and speed. Once the new manufacturing space is ready, 3 new parts formers and 1 new nut former are scheduled to be installed. The part forming machine additions will allow for the production of 9-inch long parts with diameters up to 3 inches, and the nut former will be able to produce 32 millimeter nuts, which will be Ramco's largest capability for nut production. The announcement of Ramco's Ohio expansion follows on the recent news on Ramco's purchase of a 3rd building in Michigan to add 10,000 square feet for machining operations for making precision parts. Next up, today's Fastener Newsmaker headlines. In acquisition and expansion news, MW Industries has acquired Ideal Fasteners. Specialty Bolt and Screw Incorporated, also known as SBS, has nearly completed the expansion of its facility in Juarez, Mexico. Atlas Marketing, aka AIM, has been named manufacturer's representative for Gobel Fasteners, who also announced a new partnership with SmartCert by Aramid Technologies. Simpson Manufacturing is acquiring Etanco Group. Yardley Inserts, a division of Baer Manufacturing, is adding 7 Davenport multi-spindle screw machines, and Colony Hardware has acquired Jarco Supply. In personnel news, Andy Childress is back on the advanced component sales team. Luis Gonzalez is now GM of ND Industries' Arlington, Texas facility, taking over from Dan Connor, who is retiring. Clarendon Specialty Fasteners welcomed Andreas Kuhn as its new aerospace and defense sales manager. Elgin Fastener Group, also known as EFG, named Janelle Schmidt as its new VP of Human Resources. And Ramon Sorolla is the new engineering manager at Howmet Fastening Systems in Acuna, Mexico. In awards news, Worldwide Fastener Sources announced that Tim O'Keefe, president of GL Hewitt, is the first recipient of its Fastener Person of the Year award. And the Women in the Fastener Industry Association, also known as Wi-Fi, congratulated its 2021 award recipients. The Woman of the Year is Nancy Rich of MWFA. The Woman in Business awardee is Joanne Morris from the Fastener Training Institute and Desert Distribution. And the 2021 Man Up winners are George Hunt III and Brighton Best International. You can get details on all of these stories and more in Fastener Technology International Magazine and the Fastener News Report monthly newsletter, both available online at fastenertech.com. Now let's turn to the back page to talk about movies. During Christmas break and in between watching football games and celebrating the holiday season, I had the pleasure of seeing 3 enjoyable movies that had some unexpected connections as well as lessons in simplicity and basic interests common to most everyone and everything, including the fastener industry. First up was the remake of West Side Story, which marked my first trip into a movie theater in nearly 2 years. Even though the story and ending were already known to me and most in the audience, the acting, dancing, music, and 1950s ethnic New York scenery were well worth the price of admission. Second, and necessarily watched at home with subtitles, was Belfast, a mostly black and white movie set in Northern Ireland in the 1960s. This was a stunningly beautiful presentation of a difficult and innocent time on the island where my father's parents were born and raised before immigrating to the United States. And finally, after several failed attempts, I was able to convince my wife to watch a documentary with me called If I Leave Here Tomorrow, which is about the rise, fall, and return of the 1970s Southern rock band Lynyrd Skynyrd. This was an interesting and powerful rags to riches story, filled with loads of great music and songwriting, as well as devastating hardships, bad actions, and failure. My persistence surely paid off, as I think that my wife enjoyed this movie even more than me, which was a high bar to exceed. So now for the connections and lessons. These excellent time period movies were filled mostly with poor and minimally educated people coming from several unique, interesting cultures and groups: Puerto Rican, Polish, Irish Protestant, Irish Catholic, and Southerners in the USA, also known as rednecks. All of these people were capable of good and great, as well as tragic and despicable actions, sometimes seamlessly displayed from one moment to the next. In addition, the represented cultural groups showed admirable strengths and emulatable qualities, as well as undesirable weaknesses and habits to be broken. They also shared a simplicity of common daily living, manual labors, personal socializing, and the universal desire for happiness in families, friends, and communities. In other words, lots of real and normal human behavior. There were connections and things that were fortunately missing from the stories as well. There were no smartphones, no internet, no social media or LinkedIn, and certainly no metaverse. I didn't hear anyone talking about being a master controller of the climate of their homes, apartments, workspaces, or cars, let alone the entire earth. And no one was talking about retiring early or working on their bucket list or being brave by trading cryptocurrency. It was just real people living and dying, succeeding and failing, and building and breaking relationships in real situations. On the business front, and because I am focused on fasteners, these commonalities, as well as the logical, cultural, and regional differences, and the universal desire to belong to a group, reminded me of the reasons that the fastener industry has multiple trade associations across different parts of the USA and the world, as well as the need for local sales reps and national and international trade events. Were any of these movies, people, or cultures perfect? Of course not. But they were real representations of humanity and the things that make life great and difficult all day long, all at the same time, each and every year. So if you're looking for something to watch in between making, selling, and using fasteners, I suggest you check these movies out. And now for some back page bonus questions. Did you know that the iPhone turned 15 years old this year? And did you know that the BlackBerry phone died this year, ending its product life cycle at the ripe old age of 23 years old? And did you know that print book sales increased over 8% in 2020 and 2021, the highest increases in more than a decade? And finally, did you know that vinyl album sales in the USA have grown for 16 straight years after reaching the bottom in 2006? And what does this mean to me and you? I think that it means to be careful what you attach yourself to and don't underestimate the power of reality over virtually all of its substitutes. This has been Mike McNulty of Fastener Technology International, bringing you the Fastener News Report. Please send your news, pictures, comments, corrections, or complaints to me at mcnulty@fastenertech.com.
The U.S. Anchor brand has over 45 years of history, providing quality anchoring products sold through various distribution channels. The product range is comprehensive, including light, medium, and heavy-duty offerings, ideal for construction and industrial applications. Our flagship Ultra Wedge Plus Wedge Anchor has obtained the prestigious ICC-ES approval for cracked concrete and uncracked concrete, as well as the Miami-Dade County approval. The state of Florida, city of LA, and state of California have all approved the Ultra Wedge Plus. For more information on U.S. Anchor, visit brightonbest.com. Tested, tried, and true. We are Brighton Best.
Since 1905, Buckeye Fasteners and the Ohio Nut and Bolt Company have been supplying the world with high-quality fasteners. Our standard product lines include weld fasteners, braided weld screws, leg levelers, self-clinching hardware, clevis pins, rivet nuts, and various other fastener lines, allowing us to support virtually all types of industries. BuckeyeFasteners.com. Buckeye Fasteners, more than just weld.
ND Industries has been increasing the safety and reliability of fastener assemblies by developing innovative materials and processes since 1955. Names like ND Patch, Thermalock, Electrolock, and Vibratite serve a wide variety of fastening applications across North America and around the world. To see our full line of innovative products or to discuss your application requirements, contact ND Industries today at www.ndindustries.com.
Well, hey, everybody, this is Carmen Vertullo with the Fastener Training Minute, coming to you from the Fastener Training Institute in beautiful El Cajon, California, where we are headquartered at our AIM testing laboratory. Here at AIM Testing Laboratory, we get many questions about fasteners, and sometimes they revolve around fastener coating and plating, and sometimes they revolve around zinc coating and plating, and sometimes that revolves around how can I tell if these fasteners are RoHS compliant, and what does that mean? When I return, I'll give you some clues on how to tell if your zinc plating is RoHS or RoHS compliant.
Thank you, Carmen. This is Joe Morris with the Fastener Training Institute. Welcome to 2022. I hope everyone is ready to get back to some in-person training in the new year. We've been busy at the Fastener Training Institute planning new training courses for literally all levels of personnel. In February, FTI will be presenting Fastener Training Week in Cleveland. Please join us at the Industrial Fasteners Institute from February 21st through the 25th. This week-long training program is for fastener distributors, manufacturers, and you're going to learn about manufacturing processes, consensus standards, quality control, and much, much more. This is not an entry-level class for newbies. It is recommended that you have at least 2 years of fastener experience or take one of our Fastener Basics classes. So for those of you who are relatively new, join us for Fastener Basics in person or virtually. We're going to be bringing back our very, very popular product training 3-part series to the Los Angeles area, starting in early March. This is the class where you're going to learn what's the difference between a hex bolt and a hex cap screw, or what's tensile strength and exactly how our fastener is made. But if you're not located on the West Coast, or if you prefer virtual training, we are currently hosting a 21 series called Fastener Basics like never before. This is presented by our one and only Carmen Vertullo, and it's sponsored by Brighton-Best International. Each session brings you 90 minutes of basic fastener training. You can join anytime. You have access to all the on-demand recordings. This program covers every single topic relevant to new fastener professionals, and it's really a great precursor to any advanced fastener learning learning at FTI. Remember, to steal a quote from Joe Greenslade, there is no better investment a manager can make in their business than providing good training to their staff. So please visit our website at fastenertraining.org for a complete list of all of our webinars and classes, or you can always email me at jom@fastenertraining.com. Now back to Carmen.
Quality products, quality service, quality customers. That's 3Q Inc., a fastener distributor unlike any you've worked with before. With its unique remote managed inventory stocking programs, wide array of secondary service offerings, and wholly owned cold forming capability, 3Q Inc. has been supporting fastener distributors since 2008. 3Q offers a wide range of 100% American-made fasteners, including 100% made in USA domestic lock washers, clevis pins and bolts, special ITW screw products, Tap R, Boss Screw, TL stud, and grip tied inserts, Sems lock washer products, split lock washers, tooth lock washers, and square cone, as well as specialty and imported parts. Give 3Q a call today to discuss your needs and experience 3Q quality for yourself. 3Q Inc. www.3q-inc.com.
Well, welcome back, everybody, to the Fastener Training Minute. This is Carmen Vertullo, and today we're talking about zinc-plated screws and RoHS compliance. RoHS means reduction of hazardous substances, and if you've been around this business very long, you know that comes from the European Union. It's one of the ways that they try to keep us filthy, dirty Americans from shipping our poison over into Europe. One of those poisons that they try to eliminate is hexavalent chromium, which is very popular as a top coating on electroplated zinc articles, including fasteners. Not so popular anymore, but it used to be very popular because it's very effective and it is very low cost. And in fact, it's not really that poisonous. There's not that much of it there, and we've been using it forever with really no health effects. If we process those fasteners safely and properly, it's not that big of a deal. However, they're reaching into every little corner and trying to wipe out any possibility of anything. So we cannot ship our hexavalent chrome-coated fasteners to Europe anymore. Haven't been able to do it for many years. But the problem is when you receive your fasteners, whether they come directly from a manufacturer or if they come from an importer or you are the importer, or maybe you're even sending them out to the plating shop and having them plated, you're going to get some kind of top coat on that fastener, and it is generally going to be either a hexavalent coating or a non-hexavalent coating. So how do we know? Well, first off, hopefully your fastener coating will come with a piece of paper, a certification of some sort telling you what the specification to which it was plated was. And if we're professional and we're doing it right, it's an inch fastener in the US or even a metric fastener. That standard is going to be ASTM F1941/F1941M, the latest version. And in that standard, when we designate what the top coating is, it's going to be designated by a letter, and that letter is going to essentially tell us whether it's got a color or no color. The letters are A, B, C, and D. If we have an A, a B, a C, or a D at the end of our designation, and that designation sounds like this. It sounds like FE/ZN, which means steel fastener with a zinc coating on it. FE for this iron-based steel, ZN for the zinc. It'll have a number like a 3 or a 5 or an 8. That designates the thickness in micrometers, and generally that's going to be 3 or 5 for fasteners, very thin coatings. The first one being around 1/10,000th of an inch if we convert it backwards. The second one, the 5, being around 2/10,000ths of an inch. And then comes the letter, which is the color. Clear, yellow, black are the primary colors. But after that letter, we can add another letter, which would be an N. So instead of just an A, it would be an AN. So it would sound something like this: FEZN3AN. The N designates non-hexavalent top coat. So if you have the N in this designation and on the certification, your fastener is RoHS compliant. Now, in the world of metric fasteners, when we coat them, we have another standard, which is very similar to this this ASTM F1941, F1941M, and that's called ISO 4042 or ISO 4042. It does not allow any hexavalent chrome. There's not a designation for it. Everything has a little N under it. It's a little bit different designation system, but if we're plating to ISO 4042, which we nowadays can actually find plating shops in the U.S. that will do it, we can be rest assured that you'll have a designation under ISO 4042 that will include a non-hexavalent designation. One other standard that you need to be aware of, and probably, to be honest with you, maybe one of our more common ones, is ASTM B633. We should avoid this standard for fasteners all the time because it's not a fastener coating. It's a coating for other types of articles. It even says right in it, in the standard, it says if you're plating fasteners, you should use ASTM F1941, F1941M, and F1941, F1941M says to avoid B633 for fasteners, but it's still on lots of drawings and we run into it all the time. So if you have a certification to ASTM B633 and you need to know, hey, does my plating have hexavalent chrome or can it be RoHS compliant? Those top coats are designated by types. Roman numeral 1, Roman numeral 2, Roman numeral 3, Roman numeral 4, which is an IV, and a 5, which is a V, and a 6, which is a VI. So those types are how we determine what kind of top coat it has. And some of them have hexavalent chrome and some do not. Type 2 is designated as a colored chromate coating, and it can have hexavalent chrome in it. It's got the best salt spray result. By the way, in F1941, F1941M, as soon as you add that N for non-hexavalent chrome, in many of the categories, your salt spray requirement goes down significantly. So be aware of that. It doesn't necessarily mean the actual corrosion resistance is going to go down because those non-hexavalent top coats are proprietary. You don't really know what the hell they are, but they work pretty good these days. So just be aware that when you put that N in there and want the non-hexavalent top coat, you are sacrificing by specification some corrosion performance in terms of salt spray testing. Back to B633. So Type 2 has a colored chromate coating, and it can or probably will have hexavalent chrome. The other designations are called either conversion coatings or passivates, and those are designated to be non-hexavalent containing top coats. So that's how you can tell by looking at your certification. Now, most plating shops will provide you with a RoHS certification if the product is RoHS compliant. And most of your fastener suppliers and your importers will also be able to designate that your product is going to be RoHS compliant. But if you want to know, look at the plating cert and see what specification is listed and how the particular plating is designated. Well, that's a little bit about coatings and platings, one small little snippet regarding RoH compliance of zinc plated fasteners. This has been Carmen Vertullo with the Fastener Training Minute. Thanks for listening.
At Würth, status quo isn't an option. Würth is a global supply chain solutions provider of fasteners, MRO, and safety products, along with value-added services like kitting and assembly, 3D printing, and engineering assistance. Find out what Würth can do for you at WürthIndustry.com.
Hey, this is Morgan Wilson with International Fastener Expo, and you're listening to Fully Threaded Radio.
As we set out on the first quarter of the new year, supply chain issues will continue to be a major focus for fastener distributors. Fully Threaded listeners know that our longtime partners, Würth Industry North America, have been in the process of consolidating their U.S. business units to better assist their various specific vertical market customers. And leading the industrial manufacturing segment is Würth Revcar's CEO, Chapman Revercomb. He thinks a lot about the supply chain, specifically how customers are expecting distributors to react to the current shifting environment. And as we'll hear, that's led him to a collaborative inventory mindset and various strategies for developing supply chain resilience. Chapman, thanks for being here to discuss all this today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Eric. I think it's definitely, to your point, been a challenging, last 12 to 15 months on the supply chain side, but there's also a lot of optimism from our perspective. There's a lot of opportunity for distributors to add value to the OEMs and our main customer base as a result of some of this turmoil. So definitely an interesting time.
Well, that's good to hear. We'll take all of that we can get, especially as we wind up for 2022. I have to say before we get into it, being in the fastener industry, or connected with it, I should say, since 2006 with the FCH sourcing network, I remember Revcar, which was already Würth Revcar at that point, was one of the early members of the network. And of course, I didn't understand the significance of that. You were explaining to me that actually the merger between Würth and Revcar was all the way back in 96, though. So you have been at it for quite a while.
Well, I've been at it personally for about 10 of those years, but I know for us from the Revcar side, we've always seen a lot of value in kind of frameworks or marketplaces to share data amongst other distributors, going back to the old, the Nationwide days, and then into the Fastener Clearinghouse, a much more modern solution there. So yeah, it's been a good option for us for many years.
So as we were warming up for the conversation today, you shot over a couple of slides, and I think they were sort of a rough draft slides from a presentation you're putting together for your upcoming international sales. It is international, right? Down in Florida, this meeting that you're having with all the Würth people?
Yep. So far we're maintaining our international hopes. We'll have to continue to watch from a safety and travel availability standpoint, but at this point we're international. Either way, there'll be international representation. We're hoping for a safe or global meeting.
And it looks like you're on deck to speak there. You've got a lot to say about supply chain. What are you going to lead off with?
I think for us, really an important focus is how do we turn a lot of the challenges that our customer base and our supply base, as well as us, are facing, both into opportunities, for market share growth, and also to add value to both customers and suppliers. And that's really, I think, there's a lot of obviously pricing turmoil, and that side of things is quite hectic. But the opportunity to add value and be a true supply chain partner is where I think we can make the most, headway over the next few years. And that's really going to be our focus at this upcoming meeting.
And you speak a lot about supply transparency and inventory transparency when you talk about that customer focus. What exactly do you mean by that?
Yeah, so I think, we've all seen, as just in general, distributors and even as consumers, that having visibility to inventory availability and advance notice of any disruptions is critical. So that's been a big kind of trend we've seen from our customer base, is a lot more desire, I guess, to see what sort of inventory we have on hand for them and where any risks are or any potential gaps as far in advance as possible. And a lot of that is maybe it's more cost effective to rearrange production schedules. We don't have full visibility into the rest of our customers' supply chain. So giving them the visibility to our supply chain can help them make better decisions. Now, that's a very manual process right now, especially when you consider being a fastener or C-part distributor. So having that data flowing in from our suppliers to be able to in turn use that data to provide analysis and actionable information to our customers is an area that we're heavily focused on right now.
So how is that actually taking place as a practical matter? I mean, is there technology you're throwing at this, or what do you actually do to achieve that?
Yeah. So, and that's a good question. And I wish we had a one size solution, but a lot of that is managing to the capabilities of our both supply base as well as our customer base. So right now we're using a lot of reporting tools, as well as forecasting tools from our side. Our hope is to build a better data bridge, either through EDI or just a uploadable reporting template from our supply base into our ERP system, and then in turn be able to put that out to our customers on more of a pull basis than a pushing the information to them basis. So we're not inundating, but providing the right information. So kind of more exceptions versus, just a massive dump of a giant spreadsheet that someone has to then interpret.
All right. Well, you're speaking to the choir there, Chapman. Probably a little bit of a different volume situation over here, but nevertheless, that's what we deal with all the time. And it's actually, in a way, a little comforting to hear you answer it that way, because looking around at what is happening in the world in general with this type of obvious need and the way that it's being approached in different markets and different industries, in the fastener industry, it seems like we have a universal gap there for exactly the reason that you implied. In other words, our upstream suppliers, in many cases, technically, they're not there yet, and we don't have an easy place to be able to consolidate all this. And I think that's one of the reasons that nobody's pulled off a successful marketplace in the classical sense of it. And I know that's a little bit of a tangent to what you're describing here, but let me ask you this. If you had a better inventory transparency setup right now, what are the kinds of things that customers seem to be asking for through a system like that?
Well, and this is what, we're working towards these goals to be able to provide, a very concise update to customers. There's really three different segments of the inventory from our perspective. You have what's on the customer's floor, because obviously the vast majority of our business is integrated, on-site inventory management for our customer base. So there's the inventory on the customer's floor. Is it the right amount for their production levels? Is it in the right place? And is it in the right quantity? Then we have our inventory within our facilities. Is that enough to support the amount of time between we get our next delivery, which is that third inventory bucket, which is either in transit, in the middle, in production at a supplier, or somewhere waiting for production. So those are really the three different buckets that we're asked to provide kind of actionable data to customers on. So it's a fairly complex analysis to automate. We have a lot of tools for both the customer management, the on-site inventory management. We look at bin velocity and usage very closely and constantly. And then we have a pretty clear insight to our on-hand inventory, which is obviously closely planned with safety stock and reorder points and quantities. And then we kind of have the open order inbound bucket, which currently is a quite challenging inventory bucket for us to manage and have full visibility to. So that's where a lot of our time is invested right now, is managing those open orders.
Right. It's almost quaint to talk about safety stock these days, isn't it?
Yeah. I've been fortunate to be on a lot of phone calls where they say, "What's our safety stock?" Pretty funny.
Yeah, it's at Long Beach,
Yeah. It's where do you want me to get it?
Right. But hopefully we'll get back to a point where we can talk comfortably about that. Well, that's really interesting. So then let's shift over to supply chain resilience, since I guess I swerved into that. What are you looking at there? I mean, what are the top strategies for improving in such an uncertain environment, which is what we have?
I think that will be a very popular phrase that we'll all begin to hear. Obviously, when you have a situation like we've had the last 12 to 15 months, not just in the fastener side of things, but really across the gamut. If organizations aren't looking at what the risk to their overall business model is based on supply chain, meltdowns like we've seen in general the last few months, they're probably not going to be around for long. So I think we'll definitely see a big push coming from our customer base. Obviously, some of the most mature supply chain organizations in the world on that, the large OEMs. So we're expecting to see a lot of stress tests in the future. Proactive inventory analysis, and our answer to that is going to have to be, what can our supply chain manage to support them? And if capacity is going to be an issue, for example, we need to identify multiple sources and what the cost of that is, and kind of manage that process in a little bit more organized way versus, hey, we're not our primary supplier. We're not going to be able to meet this requirement. Let's go try to find anybody in Rockford that can make these parts quickly and tool up and make that big investment. So I think one of the big areas that we expect to focus on is strategically identify a secondary source for critical items and have that be a commercially advantageous relationship, for both the primary source or supplier, if that happens to be overseas or if that happens to be a domestic, manufacturer, and then have that have that alternative source identified and that relationship pretty formal and clear for everybody. I think we've seen, we've seen obviously a resurgence in the domestic manufacturing, which is great to see. But I get the feeling from talking to our, U.S. manufacturers that they're a little uncertain whether it's long-term business, whether it's fill-in business or startup gaps or whatever the case may be. So I think giving them the insight to invest properly and reserve the capacity for us is going to be key.
That's interesting. So you feel like a lot of the talk about reshoring, as it's commonly referred to, is really not set in yet or sunk in yet. In other words, people think it might be a temporary situation until things, quote unquote, stabilize. Is that what you're seeing?
Yeah, what we're seeing is really two different kind of buckets. There's the product that now, with a longer lead time and a changing cost structure from overseas, and that some of that even goes back to tariffs, during the previous administration and that side of things. But there's certainly a more, a little bit of a leveling of the playing field from a cost, true cost comparison between the overseas and domestic manufacturing. And we also have a situation right now where that secondary and fill-in, secondary source and fill-in business is obviously as high of an activity level as we've ever seen because of some of the challenges from overseas. So it's a interesting change in the marketplace for sure.
And so overall, just generally speaking, how do you describe the performance of domestic manufacturers? Obviously, all the ones we talk to are doing a lot of business, but does it begin even to match the demands that are being put upon them?
Well, first I'll say from the distributor side, obviously without the support of the domestic guys, it's been a really impressive reaction to this crisis, and in many ways has kept the downstream domestic manufacturing, our customer base, able to even stay open. So it's a pretty amazing reaction. I'll say that we should probably highlight more and appreciate more across the industry, but also really nationally. So from that standpoint, I think they've done an amazing job. One of the areas that we're a little concerned about, and it'll be interesting to watch as things develop, is just the cost competitiveness of even the long-term legacy business that's always made sense to stay domestically. We have seen, if we had to have a concern, that just the sheer volume of fill-in business that's often at a higher price because of the urgent nature and the spot buy for raw material and, just all of the contributing factors that drive that cost up. We do have a bit of a concern that kind of inflationary pricing trend will transition over to the long-term business. And I think that would be a shame if we ended up, with the panic buying or fill-in business, making the long-term business that really has historically been made in the U.S. and we think should be for the long run, not as cost competitive. So that's what we're really trying to work with the suppliers on, is identifying what is fill-in business and what is production that will always be here or will be here for a longer period of time.
Okay. Well, sounds like everybody's still settling in on that. And the only way to do that is to travel a little bit farther down into 2022. So I guess next time we'll know a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah. And communicate openly and fairly, I think, is a key task for all of us as we go forward through this. And that's an advantage we have domestically, is obviously the language barrier. Of course, talking to me from Virginia could be hard for someone from the Midwest, but not too challenging. But just that ability to pick up the phone or have a sales call and a face-to-face meeting and a little bit different relationship is something we should keep our eye on as well.
Right. Well, transparency is clearly noted here in the notes that you sent over to me, so I know it's at the top of your mind, and I can see why. You also glanced on inflation, which I want to touch on in a second. But before we get to that exciting topic, You were mentioning that you spend a lot of time, or you try to, in the OEM mindset. And I'm just wondering, how do you actually go about getting into that kind of a mindset? Clearly, it's very important for what you do and a lot of fully threaded listeners as well. What do you personally do to put yourself in that place to try and better serve them?
Yeah, it's a good question. Understanding your customers' expectations and perspective is absolutely critical. If you want to be a success, kind of run a successful or be part of a successful sales organization. So that's a big focus across the board. And that comes directly throughout the entire Würth Group management structure down to us. One of the big global catchphrases within the Würth Group that we think is, important, even if a little hokey at times, is the ride along. And that's something that everybody in any management position across the whole Würth Group does is a ride along with the sales reps to understand what they see all the time. For us on the industry side with our customer base, the classical ride along is maybe not the best fit, but we spend a lot of time going to business reviews with customers, joining our sales team on as many calls as possible, whether it's a price increase negotiation, a business review, inventory analysis call, which, I would probably rather go to the dentist than get on that call about going line by line and checking to see if we should look at bringing an order in or a gap and what the cost is. But I think it's important to spend that time to understand the challenges that our customers are facing and what we can do to mitigate that and add value, to their production, and also that secures our place in the market. It's important. It's something we place a lot of emphasis on. And I think that's the case across really the distribution landscape. If you're not dealing with the customer regularly, it's probably going to be a pretty hard road.
So we all deal with customers, OEMs, a lot of them, and they always seem to be pushing the envelope to real-time everything. They want real-time ordering. They want real-time inventory, intel, and we're inching closer to it. But as an industry, we're not quite there yet. How do you manage those expectations?
It's a constant, continuous improvement, I think, is core to any kind of industrial manufacturing. That has to be a part of the company culture, and it's certainly a focus of our customer base in general. So that's the answer: is you have to constantly be improving your tools and processes in order to do that. Data integrity is key. So are programs, and so are systems that allow for that. So when we look at inventory management for our customer base, a lot of that is focused around a really data-driven solution that allows them to pull information out, but also for us to make changes quickly based on inputs from the customer. So, the way our systems are set up, hey, this product line is going to see a big increase. If we've done our job setting up that inventory management program, we can go look in our system and our setup at that product line or production cell or whatever, depending on the situation at whatever level, and translate that information all the way through our supply chain from what we need from an inventory standpoint. So that's the big focus right now, is continuing to push the information that we get from customers, whether it's our data or from the customers, and push that further up the supply chain as far as we can.
So I'm going to infer, it sounds like your advice to distributors who are listening to this conversation, if they're grappling with the same thing, almost sounds like you would tell them to get with your customers and tell them you need to know what they need if you're not hearing it already, because it's very important. Would that pretty much be it?
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's also important that we're telling them what they need in many cases. There's, just simple analysis like, hey, these 40 parts, the usage has gone up much higher over the last 3 months. Like, what is that expected to continue? And maybe they don't have the most sophisticated tools from a forecasting standpoint, or it's fasteners and it's not really a concern for them because it's low value. And we can push that information to them and kind of take action accordingly. So it's got to be a two-way street.
To an old school VMI guy, or a long-term old school VMI guy, that comes as second nature. I guess some of our listeners maybe need to get more into that mindset. Well, let's jump into the big one. We put it off till near the end, and nobody wants to talk about it, but we just heard the FDI report. People are seeing it, and it's here. It's inflation. We see the effect of inflation as rising prices. There are a lot of things that cause rising prices, though, and inflation is definitely one of the big contributors that people don't like to talk about. So how are you preparing to deal with this growing awareness that the pricing structure is, well, let's just say we're all expecting prices to keep going up a little bit more rapidly than they have been? What are you doing to prepare your customers for all this?
Yeah, no, it's, I would say the last 12 months, at least for me, obviously, it's been the most commercially active from a pricing management standpoint, both upstream and downstream. So I don't think that's a unique experience out there in the world. I think, I don't want to beat the transparency drum too hard, but I think in the last year, I've worked on and helped negotiate and given hundreds of price increases to large customers, and haven't heard anyone say this, this price increase, we shouldn't take an increase. This isn't justified. That has never been a topic, which has never really been said, which is interesting. But every single person we have given a price increase to on the flip side has said, explain to me why, justify it fairly, and show me how we'll manage it in the future and get, see some relief if and when things change. So for us as distributors, we're buying and reselling. So having that same approach with our supply base is the way to minimize that risk. I think at some point we can expect a tapering off of pricing. My crystal ball broke like in 2020, so I don't know when it will be, but at some point, the charts and the trends and everything that's pointing to these increases will change, and having a way to fairly manage that with our customer base and also with our supply base is really how we'll manage that relationship, and not have the inflationary market we're in right now damage relationships, or put us in a spot where we're not able to earn an acceptable margin on the services and products we provide. So it's all about transparency, capturing the data, and managing it systematically. A big focus obviously is having defined mechanisms for adjusting the pricing that work with the current market.
Interesting that some of these tough nuts are still looking at rollbacks if and when they become warranted. That's optimism right there, man.
Oh yeah. And we're in a situation now where in the past it's usually been, to your point, like a clear driver of a cost increase, whether it's the steel's going up or freight's gone up,
right,
or any other input cost. Maybe it's labor, you name it. And it's kind of a perfect storm right now. I think in my upcoming presentation, I have to confirm with our marketing department, but I think there's a picture of the old Andrea Gale on there about the pricing conditions, just to sort of, brand that a little bit of a perfect storm. There's really no area that we can't take our eye off of right now from a pricing management standpoint. One of the areas I think is also going to be important once, eventually I think we can expect the currency and the currency and the material and the freight to at least stabilize, if not reverse course. But a big area is also that labor cost that we're going to have to watch, and changes in the labor force. So productivity has and will continue to be a big focus for us at the Würth Group, but I'm sure across the board from a distributor standpoint. Investing in any kind of automated system that lets our skilled and experienced team focus on stuff that really adds the most value, rather than clerical work or pushing a button or doing really repeatable tasks. So that's another area I think will be interesting to watch, and has potential for not just in our industry but in general to play a pretty big impact on the next few years.
Oh, yeah, I think you're onto something there. I mean, let's face it, there's been a lot of efficiency squeezed into business over the last 2 years or so in particular, right? Good stuff. Well, I'll tell you what, Chapman, I think listeners will somehow be able to fight through your thick Virginia accent and get a lot of value out of the points that you've made here today, because you got a lot of ideas that make a lot of sense. And I really do appreciate you speaking with us today. There's one thing that I'd like to close with, though. We talk a lot on the podcast about fastener dogs, and I got word that there's a particular fastener dog in your world, and this is a good name, although I need some explanation. Thus my question. Tell us about Rivet Nut, the fastener dog.
There you go. Yeah, that's a highly important detail. We my wife and I got a new dog several years ago now. He's, I think, 5. We decided all of our dogs' birthdays is July 4th because it was easy to remember. So
Beautiful.
he's somewhere around 5. But we came to the conclusion we were going to start naming dogs after fasteners, just to kind of keep it in line. We had my parents and family has a piece of property they lease out to a guy to farm in Eastern Virginia. And the farmer who did it for years, is an old guy named Corky Kirby. And he named all of his dogs after engine parts. He was just a de facto diesel tractor mechanic. And, he had this pack of Jack Russells that would run around, push rod and valve stem and camshaft, just random engine part names for all his dogs. So we sort of plagiarized that idea from Corky a little bit, decided to start naming our dogs after fasteners. So that's how Rivet Nut got his name. It's pretty funny to hear, my 2-year-old daughter running around yelling Rivet all the time. You think you can get away from fasteners when you go home, you're wrong.
Oh, I love it. I mean, that's a story that's worthy of putting on Worth Knowing. I tell you right there, So
there you go.
Awesome. I love it. Now, what do you call them for short?
Rivet.
Got it. Yep.
Yeah. Or Bivet if you're 2 and can't quite talk. It's pretty funny.
Lots of different names for our puppies, don't we?
Oh, yeah. We've already done some speculating on the next one. Rivet was the best one we came up with the first time, but there were some funny ones. Be hard to explain to somebody why your dog's name was Toggle Bolt.
Maybe, but not on this podcast. Although I have to say that you have some of the best names for dogs that we've had on the show to date. So good for you, and a lot of good ideas too. Chapman Revercomb, appreciate it. You're the CEO of Würth Revcar, and you're on deck next week. Good luck with that, and thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks, Eric. Thanks for having me. Enjoyed it. Thank you.
Anytime. Hey, we'll be back momentarily to wind up this episode of Fully Threaded Radio.
At Star, the sum of all we do delivers what we consider Star quality. What began decades ago in a small-town garage paved the way for Star Stainless, a foundation built upon hard work, dedication, commitment, and partnerships. It's not just strictly the quality of the products we sell or the service we offer, but the approach in everything we do. Thanks for working with us throughout the years. Let's successfully kick off 2022 together. At Star Stainless, our quality is more than products.
Stelfast customers say it all.
Travis Hermanson, Pacific Bolt Manufacturing out of Vancouver, BC, Canada. I use Stelfast as one of my main suppliers. They've been a consistent, great vendor of mine. I've used them for many years now. I've never had any issues. And whenever we are in a jam and we need to get skids and skids of product out the door, out of the warehouse, Stelfast jumps on it right away. Their pricing, always very competitive, and they're always my first phone call. I'm a big supporter of Stelfast, and I continue to be one for as long as I can.
For service you deserve and people you trust, it's Stelfast.
Are you tired of empty promises from software vendors? Are you paying for support that you're not receiving? Is it time for another paid upgrade? There is a solution. InSequel delivers quality software designed for the fastener industry at an affordable price with industry-leading support. Quality software, affordable pricing, industry-leading support. Only InSequel can deliver all three. www.inxsql.com.
Hi, this is Tim Roberto Jr. from Star Stainless Screw Company. You're listening to Brian and Eric on Fully Threaded Radio.
You know, Bri, in some industries, you mentioned supply chain transparency, and immediately the conversation goes to blockchain. And it seems like blockchain is just a sitter for the kinds of things that Chapman was discussing. But for one reason or another, it really doesn't seem like that's hit the fastener world yet. Have you heard anything different?
Now, some supply industries have embraced it, but they're ones with a lot more money. It's now completely controls the diamond industry. In other words, from the mining out in the mines and wherever they are in the world, in Australia and Africa and Russia, right through to the De Beers, the whole process is controlled through blockchain.
Right. Well, that's about the complete opposite end of the value spectrum from fasteners, but I guess it makes a lot of sense in that example.
Right, because they can afford it, and it's still a sitter because the whole thing is just so beautifully set up for something that is decentralized. In other words, it doesn't run on any one single central computer. So you can pass control from supplier to coating facility to receiving back in a warehouse to putting on a truck, all those different entities, all, you don't have to be in any one given one of those entities in order to be able to get into the whole process. It will get there, okay? It'll get there because it really is made for this whole supply chain thing.
It's a subject that I know a little bit about. I've read about it. I don't know a ton about it, but I think as he was speaking, I kept thinking to myself, and of course I didn't want to throw a grenade in his train of thought, but we should definitely look at it and have some conversation on the podcast going forward because, again, it is a huge paradigm shift that's coming if, in fact, blockchain is the way the fastener industry grows. And as you said, this is happening in many industries, and a lot of people find the subject a little mysterious. And I would imagine that a lot of folks in our audience only think of cryptocurrencies when they hear blockchain, and they're not really quite sure what it is. So we don't need to get into that right now. Point is, supply chain transparency is a big topic. Blockchain is certainly an answer to it. And I'll tell you what we'll do is next month for the FDI, we'll put a couple of survey questions in the monthly questionnaire, see what we get back. We can use that as a basis for starting a dialogue. What do you say?
Okay, I think it's good. Yep.
It was very good of Chapman Revercomb of Würth Industry North America to join us today. He was busily getting ready for his big presentation down in Florida, which now is over. So we recorded that before, but he was really scrambling. Thanks to him. Thanks also to Holden Lewis of Fastenal, another guy who has a lot going on all the time. We were so fortunate to cross paths way back when Mike McNulty and Bob G.Q. Baer presented the 10-year-old Fastener Distributor Index. Thank you, gentlemen. And thanks to all the respondents over the years who have provided all this data. Some come and go, but there's a core group that seems to always be there. If you're not involved with the Fastener Distributor Index, we really strongly urge you to participate. It's simple, takes less than a minute to do. All your data is very confidential. FDIsurvey.com.
Right, and over the numerous years since we started the FDI, it started off in the logos on the page used to have BB&T Capital Markets, and the background to the page was a picture of BB&T's head office in Boston.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, right. And that still exists on one of the emails that goes out. In that time, there's numerous other logos have turned up there, including our FCH modernized one and NFDA. So it's had a bit of staying power.
Rounding out our thanks on the episode today, Carmen Vertullo had the Fastener Training Minute. Thank you, Carmen, for always being there. The title sponsors of Fully Threaded Radio are Brighton Best International, Tested, Tried, True, Brighton Best, Goebel Fasteners, Quality the First Time, Goebel, Star Stainless Screw Company, Right Off the Shelf, Star. Fully Threaded Radio is also sponsored by Buckeye Fasteners, BTM Manufacturing, Eurolink Fastener Supply Service, Fastener Technology International, InSequel Software, ND Industries, Parker Fasteners, Solution Industries, Stelfast, 3Q Inc., Volt Industrial Plastics, and Würth Industry North America. Please let us know what you think of the podcast, folks. The email address is ftr@fullythreaded.com. Well, Bri, it's been a podcast full of, I think, our usual Fastener podcast fare, predominantly Fastener-related, and milestones. I hinted a little earlier that our script writers seem to have gone on strike or something this episode. So
yeah, I noticed.
Little disorganized, but never fear. Just in time to put this whole thing to bed today. Got an email from this company that sells a lot of various coinage, silver, gold coins, things like that. Something that could probably use a blockchain also. They were pointing out that they're offering now a silver coin commemorating the 40th anniversary of the video game Galaga, which I know you know nothing about.
I have no idea what that is.
Right. Well, for those of us, maybe, I don't know, in our late 40s to maybe early 60s, would that be the range? That was an old favorite by today's standards, very primitive video game, but God, the number of quarters and hours I wasted on that thing over the years. A lot of fun. And I was not a big video game head, as you know.
No, nor was I, but I did play Pac-Man. And I actually used to be the various ones that ran on computers then that I played, yeah. It was a Space Invaders thing.
Right. Space Invaders was the first big video arcade game, I think, that hit, well, after Pong, but it was that progression. So Galaga came shortly after that, but in any event, it was 40 years ago, and there's a silver coin apparently you can buy. I didn't really take the clickbait on that one, but it just fit in nicely to today's episode. Those of you who are, I don't know, around our age would get a chuckle out of that, and it conveniently gives us a way to check out of this episode today.
Right. That was surprising.
Right, being just so absolutely thematic.
Good. So you must have found the script again, did you?
Well, it's in there now, but it's ephemeral, as with a blink of an eye.
Yeah.
It's time to roll this one up. Hey, we'll have John Newman and Tim Vath of Linfast next episode, everyone. We'll be talking about the next chapter in the Solution Industries saga.
Good.
Among other things. And until then, Bri, I guess you'll just be working on whatever it is for your next milestone.
I don't want too many more milestones, thank you. I want other people to have milestones, okay?
The thrill is gone, huh? That's what I'm sensing.
Yeah. Right.
That's fine. I guess we'll just get out of here, and thank you, everyone, for listening in. We sure do appreciate it. For Brian Musker, this is Eric Dudas. Get out there, sell some screws. Don't listen to Brian. Make a milestone of your own. We'll talk to you next time.
Just don't tell me about it, okay? Until next time, folks. Keep well.
Fully Threaded Radio is a production of Fastener's Clearinghouse. Music provided by Audionautics.